Despite making up only 2% of the population, the nearly 7 million American Jews play a significant role in the United States. In New York, the Chinese and Jewish communities have long been closely linked. I recently sat down with Cheryl Fishbein, the president of the Jewish Community Relations Council, to ask her about how the relationship between two of America's most vibrant groups.
The New York Jewish community numbers right now approximately 1.2 million people. And my organization that I am president of is called the Jewish Community Relations Council. And we are really the face of the Jewish community. We are an agency of UJA Federation of New York, which is a broader Jewish community, and we are the arm of the community in our relationship with the mayor of New York, with the governor of the state of New York, with the city council, with the police, with the fire. We are also the center of communications with the Catholic Church, the Latino Church, all outreach of the Jewish community to those who are not Jewish in the city and the state of New York. It's quite broad, it's quite exciting, and we enjoy very good relationships across the board. But the Chinese relationship is so special. I think for many reasons. Number one, we are both communities of immigrants. So we understand the immigrant relationships, we understand what it means to come here and to try to live the American dream. And we dreamt it through making sure that our children are well educated, that they have family values, that they behave in a certain way in society and within their own friendships, that they are very learned, and this is automatic. The other piece is that we are very grateful to the Chinese for their saving thousands of Jews during World War II, those who were running from the Nazis, and they lived in Shanghai, and although the Chinese were suffering terribly under the Japanese, they did welcome them in their midst, and we were able to really have a wonderful communication together. And so we remember that as well. So when we hear Chinese, it's very special. But these good feelings have been intensified because we're dealing with a great deal of anti-Semitism. The Chinese are not anti-Semitic as a group. Our work with Fred Teng is fabulous. If he needs something from us, we're there. If we need something from him, he's there. Every year, our organization has a large parade. It's called the Celebrate Israel Parade. Fred is there. He's got a beautiful float. He gives out panda bears to the children. So, you know, he's like the Chinese mayor for us.
So you have this very special feeling towards the Chinese community. Yeah. Do you feel that's reciprocated?
In all of our relationships, there are good business relationships. There's a certain level of trust between the two communities because we share the values that we do. And so there are many, many relationships. As you saw around the table, there were quite a few. There were Jewish lawyers, there were Jewish, you know, because we feel a sense of camaraderie, kinship almost in how we feel about each other.
However, I'm going to ask you this question and want to get your view on that. The Jewish community actually has quite a bit of influence in the politics of the United States for obvious reasons. But for the Chinese community, they suffer from a lack of voice. They suffer from a lack of influence. Does that anyhow play into the relationship that you have with the Chinese community? Does that imbalance you know, manifest itself in any way or impact in any way your relationship?
It's an interesting question, and I never thought of it that way. But no, I think it's almost a skill set that maybe we have learned a little bit more quickly, the Jewish community, in terms of how to be more politically active. I also think it's not even learned, because you can learn that rather quickly. I think the Chinese that came here with a certain level of distrust for government, for politics, really not understanding the political system at all, so they stayed back. And I think if you start to pay a little bit more attention, specifically New York, maybe San Francisco, where there are larger groups of Chinese, you're going to see more and more activity in the political range. I don't see it as a competition. I see it more as, because we would be very supportive of Chinese participation in the political system in New York and elsewhere. I think it's just a process right now.
Have the trade tensions between China and the United States anyhow impacted your relationship?
With the Chinese community? Absolutely no, because number one, it's very separate. The Chinese community here are Americans. We don't, because we're an immigrant society, and because we are so used to seeing immigrants in our everyday lives, and especially in New York City, where you hear different languages all the time, and most of us are fairly open to the whole immigrant experience. The Chinese, whether they speak English or not, whether they're new here or second generation or third, they're Americans. So that issue, we would never take that out on them. And if anything, both of our communities might look at this trade war as how it's going to impact the economies. How is it going to impact our everyday lives? But not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. But are you worried that in the future it might a little bit?
I think we worry about anything that puts a stressor on the economy. And yeah, I think people are worried in general, and they don't like to see this kind of stress.